If you're thinking about buying a home in Plano, Texas, this is the one video that you don't want to miss. I'm going to share with you the exact step-by-step blueprint to actually buy in Plano. So we're going to go through the getting qualified, so what it actually takes to get qualified, the financial assessment that you need to go through, how to search for the right property, and get into an offer situation where you're actually on top. So it doesn't matter if there's multiple offers on the table, if you're the only one to get your price, get your terms, get your home accepted, or get your offer accepted is a better way of saying that. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna get right into it so we don't delay. And again, if you're looking and thinking about buying in Plano, Texas, we're going to go through all of it. I'm going to share with you what a mortgage payment would look like. I'm going to share with you how to calculate property taxes, which are super important in Plano itself. So let's begin. All right, so all of our notes, everything that you're gonna, our entire hub is in DFWHomebuyerClass.com. It's gonna have a full in-depth breakdown of everything that you're gonna need, from calculators, from reference resources. Several resources, along with the step-by-step blueprint to actually buy a home in Plano. So you're gonna want to check that out. DFWHomebuyerClass.com. It's really pretty cool, if you ask me. All right, so let's get going. The one thing to ask yourself, and it's the same question that I ask our clients to ask themselves, is if it makes sense for me to buy, will I actually do it? So I'll say it again. If it makes sense for me to buy, will I actually do it? So I really go through this exercise with all of our clients because I want them to commit to themselves, and really more than anything, if they don't plan to go through with it, if they do, if they were more pressured into having a conversation about buying real estate, or just were more pressured by, let's just say a coworker ended up buying, and they're thinking, well, I want to buy, but in reality they had no desire to buy. Essentially, they're just getting some peer pressure. It really helps them flesh out if this is something that is if this is something coming from them, or is this something that's coming from an external source that is pushing them in this direction. So again, if all the conditions are set, where the property has already been found, the price has been, if the property was at a good price, if all the conditions are met, will you actually go with it, go through with it and actually buy? If the answer is no, now would be a good time to just hit the eject button. You don't have to go through the home purchase just for the sake of it. You don't have to go and spend all the time looking through homes, going to all these properties, only at the end of the day to not want to go through with it. It's going to save you a lot of time, a lot of heartache, and a lot of money at the end of the day, because you know that some decisions just snowball into one another, especially as you get into real estate. You could find yourself with some cost that you didn't intend to have altogether. Well, now that we're talking about cost, let's go ahead and get into the financial assessment of the equation. So whenever you're thinking about buying a home, so as you're thinking about buying a home in Plano, there's three things that you need to look out for from a financial perspective. So you're looking at the ongoing cost of home ownership. In Plano, something very, very important to note is the property tax rate. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to show you exactly how to find it and calculate it within your mortgage payments, so you have a realistic expectation of not only what your monthly payment is going to be today, but also what it could be in 5 years from now and 10 years from now, just to get some clarity and transparency there. So number one, when it comes to your financial assessment, is having understanding of the ongoing cost. The second is the transaction cost, what it's actually going to take for you to purchase a home. And then 3, the moving cost. So backing up for a quick second, ongoing cost, you're looking at beyond the mortgage payment. You're looking at the additional cost for utilities. You're looking at HOA fees. You're looking at any repairs that need to happen to the property. Essentially, what needs to, the home maintenance aspect of home ownership is something that sneaks up on a lot of individuals. Even if this is your second, third, fourth, fifth house, it's underestimated how much it actually costs to maintain your home. Now, I'm not saying it's an astronomical amount. It's just often underestimated how much it's actually going to be. Something simple as, let's just say, lawn care. So if you're coming in from a place like an apartment that you're not used to taking care of the lawn, well, either you're doing it yourself by buying equipment and then doing all of the treatment of the lawn yourself, and or you're paying somebody to come out here weekly or bi-weekly, especially in a rainy season like it has been here recently. So again, the ongoing cost is a real cost that you need to factor into your financial assessment. Second thing is transaction cost. The down payment is something that will accompany a purchase of a home unless you are doing unless you're purchasing it outright. And if you're purchasing it via cash, well, that in of itself is a transaction cost. But beyond the down payment, there are some additional costs that come with that. The additional costs are in the forms of what's called closing costs. So that you're looking at paying for the title work, you're paying for lender fees, you're paying for appraisals, you're paying for additional closing costs that's often overlooked. So you may have enough for the down payment. So if you're doing a conventional, let's say it's the minimum down payment for a conventional loan is 3%. Or if you're doing an FHA, the minimum down payment is 3.5%. So you might have that in the bank and you're thinking, okay, well, if I buy a home for $300,000 and the minimum down payment that I'm being asked to furnish is 3%, if I do a conventional, that's $9,000. I have $9,500. Let's go buy a house. I wish it was that simple and I wish it was that low, but that's not the case. So what I ask you to budget in addition to the down payment, again, in addition to the down payment, is 3 to 5% more. And that is going to help you with, again, the closing costs. That's going to help you with paying what's called prepaids. They're your prepaying home insurance and your prepaying property taxes at the closing table. So again, you're not just talking about the down payment. You have to add 3 to 5% additional for the closing table. Now, the third is the moving cost. What's it going to cost for you to move from where you're at right now to the new place that you're going to? So it's going to cost money to get out of where you're living right now. Well, why is that the case? Well, most likely you're renting. If you're renting, you probably have a deposit. Well, somebody has a deposit, one of your deposits here. So you are trying to get as much of that money back as possible. So it's going to cost you some money to maybe repair or bring that property back to the condition in which you found it. And then hopefully you get some money back from your deposit. There's also going to be a cost to transport your belongings from where you live now to where you're going to live. So the transportation cost is a real thing. U-Hauls are not free. And then the third component is either updating, upgrading, repairing the property that you're purchasing, and also furnishing it. That costs money as well. So when you factor all this in, we're not just talking about having money for the down payment. We're not just talking about the monthly mortgage payment. There's some real costs associated on the back end that we often overlook. So a purchasing decision for a home is not let's call it 3% of the value of the home. There you're looking at adding a significant amount more. So you want to be comfortable with that. And if you're not comfortable with that, now's a good opportunity to say, hey, you know what? It's not something I want to pursue any further. But again, this is why we go through the step by step, so you get clarity along the way and are doing this in order without you heading over to Zillow, finding all these properties, going and looking for homes, only to find out that, hey, you know what? This is actually a little bit more expensive than I anticipated. I want you to save time. I want you to save money. I want you to make this a pleasurable experience. Now, with that being said, if you're finding value, let me know in the comment section down below by smashing that like button. We want this video to reach far and wide for all my Plano people. So if you're thinking about buying in Plano, Texas, this is the video for you. Now, let's talk about finding the right real estate agent. I break it down very simply because we can go into so many different avenues here. The one thing I want you to look for with a real estate agent is somebody that knows real estate. So essentially, they know what the transaction looks like. They know contracts, they know addendums, they know strategy, they know how to negotiate, they know real estate. Here's this is an astounding stat. Last year, 50% of the real estate agents sold one or no homes. That's right. Last year, 50% of the real estate agents out there sold one or no homes last year. That is astounding, right? So I want you to work with a real estate agent that has experience, that knows real estate, that knows the actual transaction of a real estate transaction. Now, beyond that, you of course want somebody that's capable. You want somebody that knows how to fill out contracts, that knows how to negotiate, that knows how to do all that fun stuff. But at the end of the day, you want somebody that knows the market that you're looking to purchase. And you want somebody that knows Plano, that knows the neighborhoods, that knows the schools, that knows things around the area, so they're not blindsided by some ordinance that you might not have heard of. So as an example, if you're thinking about doing Airbnbs or investing in Plano, you need to know, hey, are Airbnbs allowed? Right? So it's knowing the market. That's so important if you're going to be buying in Plano. Here again, I keep pointing to property taxes because they're a real thing, and I'm going to show you how to find them. So again, that goes to the market knowledge of the area that they're working in. Now, a pro tip here is that I want you to ask that real estate agent for their value proposition. What do they bring to the closing table? What do they bring to your transaction? If the answer is, I don't know, then you probably might want to look elsewhere. Right, so somebody that can either save you time, save you money, and they want to and then they can share with you in what ways they can do that. That's super valuable. That's a great way for you to identify the right real estate agent that can help you with the Plano transaction. But let's continue. Let's go to step number 4, and that's getting pre-qualified. Pre-qualified is essentially the act of you filling out an application with a mortgage professional, and that mortgage professional reviewing it and looking at several different things. So number 1, they're going to look at your income. Number 2, they're going to look at the debt, so how much debt you actually have. Number 3, they're going to look at the assets that you own. Essentially, they want to know, do you have money for the down payment? And number 4 is they're going to check your credit score. So at the end of the day, they're going to look at that information, they're going to piece it together, and they're going to give you a pre-qualification letter. Why is this important? Why is it important that you get pre-qualified? Well, it's going to show sellers that you're serious. Whenever you find that perfect house, which I'm going to show you how to find it right now, we're going to go through the actual process of finding that home, looking at reviewing the property itself, and then actually I'm going to show you the contract that is used to send in an offer. Once you're at that point and you're ready to send over an offer, you must accompany that offer with some proof that you can actually purchase that property. So if you're going to get a loan, a pre-qualification letter from a lender is that ticket, that is that receipt that you're looking for. But beyond having that proof that you're going to be able to qualify for that property that you're looking to put an offer in, you're wanting to set a realistic budget. With this pre-qualification letter, it lets you know how much money you can borrow. It lets you know essentially what type of home you can afford. At this present time, oftentimes when I work with clients, they're thinking that they can afford a $400,000, but because of certain debt that they forgot even existed, either because they're just not paying it or something happened, maybe they didn't qualify for that $400,000, but they qualify for $380, $375, $350. So essentially, they'd qualify for less. I want you to have that clarity up front. So again, to save some time, save some energy and some money as you're looking and searching for that perfect Plano home. Now, one quick tip here, get quotes from multiple lenders. There's nothing wrong with that. And yes, they're going to be pulling your credit every time you submit an application. However, you get a grace period. Whenever you submit, whenever you get a credit inquiry, the credit bureaus know that depending on where you're getting this credit inquiry from, if they get it from a lender, from a mortgage professional, they know, oh, they're looking for a home. So here within the next several weeks, they can submit multiple credit inquiries. It's not going to affect their credit score. So essentially you get the grace period of if you do 3 credit pulls, 5 credit pulls, it's not going to affect your credit as if it would normally do if you were submitting a credit app for the Best Buy card, for the Chase Sapphire card, for the X, Y, and Z card. It's treated differently whenever you're looking for a property. Step number 4 is we're going to start doing our home search. Now, keep in mind, this is probably where a lot of you, including myself, start. We go and look at the properties available. We go and start looking at Zillow. We go and start looking at Trulia. We start looking at Realtor.com, Redfin, and start looking for homes before we go through step 1 through 4. Now, the reason this is step number 5 is because it should not be the first step. right? So there's preparation that can happen before you get to this point. Again, if you want to really streamline your purchase and are not rushed and don't feel like you're just not in control. This process has been tried and tested multiple times over. So I encourage you to head over to dfwhomebuyerclass.com. So again, dfwhomebuyerclass.com. You're going to get access to all of our resources there. And we're going to make it super simple. You get the exact blueprint that we use, the exact checklist that our internal inside sales agents use for your transaction. But with that being said, whenever you're going and searching for your property, we keep it pretty simple. We really ask you to do two things. One, create a needs list, and two, create a wants list. So here, we again keep it super, super simple. Now, your needs list, that is something that you cannot do without. That is something that if this property has it, great. If this doesn't, we're not going to even look at it. So as an example, this property cannot have a pool. Well, that's struck out. This property cannot be 2 stories. Well, you're not going to look at 2 stories. This property must be within a specific school district. Well, that's on your needs list. This is something that you want to cap off at 5 items, no more than that, or else you're just basically creating a wish list and you're going to be more susceptible to breaking that wish. Create that needs list. It's going to bring clarity to you. It's going to make home purchasing much more enjoyable. Now, you also want to create a wants list. Now, this wants list, you have a bit more flexibility. With this wants list, it's very important to you, but it's not the most important thing to where it would create the deal. So here in this wants list, this is things that, yes, I would want it to be ideally on a 1/3 of an acre. But if we find a property that's a 1/4 of an acre, I'm okay with that. Right, so identify a few. Like here, I did put a max of 5 items here, but you can be a little bit more flexible here. But here again, it's the wants list is something that you have identified as a priority for you, but not the most important priority for you altogether. So creating that list here again provides clarity for you, so you're not there just trying to re-underwrite every single property one by one and starting over from scratch. Here you at least have the baseline of what you're willing to consider and what you're not willing to consider. Super, super helpful to bring clarity before you get emotionally attached to a property, before you start looking for homes and then find a home that you absolutely love, but it doesn't have there are certain things that you wish weren't present in the property and that you've compromised too much, right? So oftentimes, if you don't have that clarity ahead of time, you're going to run into what's called a buyer's remorse. And that's something that we help our clients avoid at all costs. Now, a pro tip here is do life in your future neighborhoods. So what that means is whenever you're thinking about, let's just say you want to live in North Dallas for whatever reason, and then in this case, Plano, but you live in Fort Worth. So as an example, you're looking to buy in Plano, but you live in Fort Worth and you've never even just by accident been to North Dallas. Again, for whatever reason, you just haven't been to North Dallas, but you want to live there now. You want to live in Plano, which North Dallas is fantastic, by the way. But here again, if you've lived in Fort Worth and work your entire life in Fort Worth, and now you want to live in Plano, well, what you want to do is after work, after you've gone to your work again in Fort Worth, make that drive up to Plano and see if that's something that you're willing to commit to however many times you go into work, into the office, right? On the weekends, spend your time in Plano, right? This is something that, again, doing life in your future neighborhood is going to help you so much. It's going to bring clarity in your home purchase journey. So wherever you plan to do life, whether it's Plano, North Plano, East Plano, West Plano, wherever, make sure that you're doing life there before you actually purchase, because here again, we try to avoid buyer's remorse. The first time that you go back to the property or the area that you're buying in should not be when you've actually bought. That shouldn't be the first time that you do it, because at that point it's too late. If you hate the commute, if you hate the Saturdays, the Sundays in that area, then you're going to be in for a long journey. All right, so that's a little bit about the home search strategy. Let's talk about making an offer here. But before we actually go through and make an offer, just remember that everything is negotiable. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go and look at Plano real estate. I'm going to show you the properties available for sale right now so you get clarity on what that looks like. So we're going to go to jaimeresendiz.exprealty.com and we're going to go to Plano. There's over 1,000 properties available for sale right now with the average price of $654,000. Now this includes all type of property. This includes condos, multifamily, commercial, land, townhouse, residential lease, farm and ranch. And what we're going to look at is only residential. And there's about 700 properties available for sale right now in the city of Plano. And the least expensive home right now is, well, looks more like a lot. So, or maybe a tear down because they don't really have pictures. So here you see the least expensive home for sale right now is going to be what they call investor specials. So basically these are homes that are sold as is that are going to need some work and some rehab. So you have $250,000 homes right here, $270,000, and then it gets quickly up to $300,000. So if you have a budget of $300,000 and want to buy in Plano, unfortunately, that's probably not going to be the best fit for you if you value options, if you value a property that you can just buy and then move into and be good with. Unfortunately, those the $300,000 price point right now is not something that would be attainable for you at this present time. Now, what I want to show you is I want to show you this in phases just to make it pretty visually clear on what to expect when it comes to real estate. So just a quick reminder where Plano is in the North Dallas. It's one of the most coveted areas right now in Dallas altogether. So it's no surprise that you're looking at Plano because it's a fantastic city to look at. So let me X out of this real quick to get myself out of here and you get the full picture. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to cap the 400,000. So we're going to go from properties under $400,000. So if you're looking and have a pre-approval in hand for $400,000, I want to show you how many properties are available for sale at that price point and where they happen to be. You're going to see that most of the homes that are under $400,000 happen to be on the east side of Plano and also southeast side to be a little bit more specific. So here a little bit closer to the Richardsons of the world, the Garlands of the world. So as you see Firewheel, that is North Garland. So this is where you see a good portion of the real estate that's under $400,000. And to give you an idea of what property looks like in that price point, you're going to see a lot of rehabs that are on the smaller side because what you're seeing is the investors are picking these properties up in the 200,000s or in some cases less, rehabbing them and putting them out into the market in the 300s, give or take. So you see the homes, you see these that have already been rehabbed. Now you're also seeing something that you haven't been used to in the last few years, and that's been price reductions. Right now, if you're in the market and you're a buyer, now is your time to strike. Why? Well, because right now there are way more price reductions than price increases. There's way more price reductions than new listings into the market. Reductions are happening at a massive scale. So if you're thinking about buying, now would be a good time for you to get serious, get pre-qualified, and make a run at one of the properties here. There are such things as offensive offers, but in this market, it's even offensive offers have their day. Even the offensive offers have a discussion around the family table. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the price point where you're going to find a lot of the inventory, which is going to be between the $400,000 and $600,000. So here you're going to see the central part of Plano where you're going to find most of the properties available for sale under the $600,000 mark. If you want to get to the west side of Plano, that is going to cost you over $600,000. So if you want to get into this side that gets a little bit closer to Dallas North Tollway, you will need to be over $600,000. It's a really good visual, right down to the nose on what it would take for you to get into that part of the of Plano if that's what you're looking for. Like Prestonwood is so in demand. It's something that as soon as we put listings out there, it just goes. But anyway, you're seeing the homes available for sale here in Plano, and I'm just going to quickly scroll through, just fast forward to properties that are in the 500s to give you an idea of the incredible value that you're getting with Plano. Now here again, you're also seeing something that was a common thread earlier. You're seeing some price reductions, and that is common throughout the Metroplex. In fact, throughout the country at this point, the price reductions are in full effect. So if you're thinking about purchasing, now would be a good opportunity to just start looking at least. Now to cap off the search, here again, I just want to show you visually. This is something that you could do on your own, but I want to save you the trouble here and show you what it looks like. So as mentioned earlier, you're looking at the you need at least 600,000. Here in reality, you need into the millions as you're talking about Willow Bend and being in this market right here. So if you want to be on this side, you're going to be between $1 million in Dallas North Tollway and Preston Road. You can see a lot of incredible real estate. If you want to be beyond that into the ultra luxury, then we can look at that first. You see the properties that are available for sale right now in this neck of the woods. So you see the 1.6, 1.7, just incredible property. Beautiful. Alrighty, so what I want to show you here is something that, let's just say we want to buy a home let's say we want to buy $600,000 home. Let's say this right here is the one for us. Oops. Okay. This is the home that we're going to purchase. I'm going to show you how to calculate the property taxes. I'm going to show you how to calculate the price on this home. Whoops. So as you're coming in, a like is going to go a long way. It's going to really help us distribute this video to all Plano or future Plano residents. All right, so we're going to buy this home. It's $600,000. And what we need to do is we need to figure out what the mortgage payment is going to be. Because oftentimes you're going to be getting a loan and you want to figure out what the mortgage payment is going to look like. So for that, all you have to do is go to bankrate.com and just go to a publicly available calculator. I'm not showing you any resources that you don't have access to presently, so you can make the calculation for any amount that you're looking for. I want to show you how to do this. Now, if you're going to buy a $600,000 property, in this particular case, is this property that we've highlighted here. You're also going to be looking at the down payment. What down payment are you going to be putting down? So here, well, for sake of this walkthrough, and to keep it very, very straightforward, we're going to put 20% down. Now, could you do less? Could you do 10%? Could you do 5%? Yes, you could. Now, the reason that a lot of folks choose to put at least 20% down is because they want to avoid what's called mortgage insurance, which mortgage insurance is an insurance that the lender puts on you in the event that you default. So they're trying to protect their asset even more. So yes, they can bring the property back to them. I was about to say repossess, but that's a car loan. that's a car item. So this mortgage insurance, that's something that you're going to be paying in addition to the interest rate that you're getting charged. And with this mortgage insurance, just to give you an idea, it's about 0.5 to about 1.2 or so percentage additional. So about 0.1% to 1.25% more. It's just going to depend on the loan. It's going to depend on your credit. It's going to depend on a few different things. But since we're putting 20% down, we avoid that altogether. We do not pay mortgage insurance because we're putting at least 20% down and above. So here we're putting 20% down. That's the benchmark. That's the magic number to avoid mortgage insurance. So let's continue. The mortgage loan term is going to be 30 years. Now for the interest rate, what we're going to do is we're just going to ballpark it. Once you do get pre-approved, once you do get that number or start working with a lender, they're going to get something a little bit closer to what you're actually going to be paying. So what we're going to do is we are going to go into what's happening in the mortgage interest right now, or the mortgage interest rates right now, and it's 6.9%. That is what the average interest rate is. Now, of course, you could get a lower interest rate. Now, you may also get a higher interest rate. That's what an average is. 6.9% is the average. So for you, if you have better credit and or are asking for a little bit less money, you might be getting a lower interest rate. If you have a worse credit, then you might be getting a higher interest rate. But for the most part, this is going to give you a good average to work from to get a realistic picture of what it's going to look like to buy a home and what it's going to cost you every single month from a mortgage perspective. We're going to ignore the zip code because that has something to do more with our home insurance, and we're going to also ignore the credit score because, again, that's already taken care of with the interest rate, the average interest rate that we selected. What we are going to look at very closely now is our Plano property taxes. You've heard me say property taxes probably 20 times already. You're going to hear me say property taxes 20 times more. Why? Well, because in Plano, it's super important that you know what your property tax rate is, because that's something that doesn't go away even if you own the property outright. So property taxes are a way of life. Property taxes here in Texas happen to be the highest in the country, not the highest, one of the highest in the country. In fact, it's number 7 if you are ranking them state by state. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Google, and we're going to go to Plano property tax rate. And we're going to go to their website directly. We need to find out what their property taxes actually are. Now, thankfully, Plano made it pretty easy for us. Plano has shared what the property tax rate actually is. Now, all these 4 numbers are going to get added together. Now, before I add them together, I want to show you what especially if you're thinking about Plano, if you're thinking about Allen, if you're thinking about McKinney, Frisco, Plano, the Colony, Carrollton, the cities that are next to Plano, I want you to have clarity on how to calculate property taxes, because you're not just looking at Plano in a vacuum. You're considering Plano, but maybe that's not the only place that you're looking at. So I want to show you how property taxes work. In the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, there's going to be up to 5 numbers that are relevant to you when it comes to property taxes. So again, there's going to be up to 5. 3 of these numbers that I'm going to share with you are going to apply regardless of the city that you purchase in. And that's going to be the city tax rate, the county tax rate, and the ISD tax rate, essentially the school tax rate. So here you have the city, the county, the ISD. So here you see the city, the county, and the ISD. Those 3 numbers, or those 3 items, are going to apply to any city in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex for sure. Now there's 2 additional numbers that often present themselves, but not always, but they do present themselves. It's going to be the higher education tax and possibly the hospital network tax. So as an example, if you live in Dallas, you're going to have the Dallas Community College, and then you're also going to have the hospital network for Dallas. Oh, I'm yawning. Excuse me. No wonder I have coffee. But with Plano, what you're seeing here is you don't have the hospital network tax, which is good. You only have the higher education tax. So in this particular one, you're looking at Collin County Community College. So you have the city, the county, the ISD, plus one of the 2. That again, you could realistically have both of them, but in this particular case, Plano does not have the hospital network tax. So what you're going to do is you're going to add all of these together to get the actual property tax that you're looking at. So here, what we're going to do is we're going to add these together. Now we're going to be, in this particular calculation, what we're going to do is we're going to overestimate, just to give you a full disclosure on this. We are going to be overestimating the property taxes slightly, and I'm going to share with you how we're doing that. So I'm going to go with 0.4176 plus 0.0812 plus 0.1493 plus 1.0425. The property tax rate in Plano, Texas right now is 1.69%. Now it's actually down. This is good. That's actually down because you were closer to the 2%, but a couple of years ago. So what we're going to do is we are going to go here and we're going to go back to our property that we're trying to buy. So we're going to type in 600,000 times 0.0169%. That is the property tax rate. And that equates to, that equals $10,140. So let me do this real quick. I like this better. $10,140 per year, and we're going to divide that by 12 because we're doing this monthly. So in property taxes for this property, give or take, you're paying about $845. Now I'm going to come back to that listing here shortly so you see where I'm coming from. So here we're going to go 845. Now I mentioned to you that this number is a little bit on the conservative side. This number is a little bit on the higher end. Why did I do that? Well, because I wanted to give you a realistic number, but a conservative number, so you're not surprised when you're signing the closing disclosure. So here's what's happening. This number is slightly inflated because I used the market value, what you bought the property for. So this is the market value. I did not use what's called the assessed value. The assessed value is oftentimes less, most of the time less, which at that point, the reason the assessed value, which is what your property taxes are calculated against, the reason that this number is lower is because you've applied a homestead exemption. You've been protesting property taxes. You are, for the most part, getting a break in property taxes by having the assessed value being less. So in reality, I would, if I wanted to get a little bit closer to the number, I could reduce this down to what I would suspect the assessed value to be of the property, which would probably be about 570, maybe 560. So I wouldn't be paying this amount. Now, don't mishear me. It's still going to be most likely over $800, but just want to give you a cushion if you're budgeting things out. But I want to also share with you something, because you're going to oftentimes see what the taxes happen to be. You're going to see what the present homeowner is paying in property taxes, which is different than what you're going to be paying in property taxes. Why? Well, because again, they are most likely applying the homestead exemption. So if you're an investor, as an example, you're not going to be able to apply the homestead exemption because that doesn't apply to you. So if this property right now is being is owner occupied and the owner has a homestead exemption on it, you as an investor, you're paying more in property taxes, which would be more in line with the $10,000 that we budgeted over here. Just to give you an idea. Again, I don't want to over confuse it, but I do think it's important that we all know how property taxes work, especially in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, because they are among the highest in the country. So you need to know where your money is coming from, and you also need to be knowing what the differences are between buying in Plano and buying in Allen. If you have no preference in terms of the city itself, but if the difference can be several $100s in property taxes, that difference can be that vast. You talk about years and years and years of paying more and more in property taxes, then it becomes an issue. Homeowners insurance. Homeowners insurance for a property of this size, you're looking at about $250. That's a reasonable home insurance quote, but here's the thing. Home insurance is going to be high. It's going to be high. I could easily book $400 here and I would be okay with it in terms of budgeting that in, but I'm giving you a realistic ballpark. In fact, I'd feel even more comfortable if I gave you $300 as the home insurance per month. So here, my pro tip here is get as many quotes as possible. I would get an insurance broker. If you need some resources on who we use, again, just go to dfwhomebuyerclass.com. I'll gladly share with you who I personally use to insure my home. So the broker that I use, she's phenomenal. And then also try to bundle them with your auto. Try to bundle them with other policies that you have in place. It's going to really help you save money, because here again, home insurance is just so challenging. You have home insurers actually refusing policies even from door to door. So as an example, we just closed on a property over in Fort Worth. The same insurer, this is a brand new home, the same insurer that was insuring our previous clients that lived 3 doors down, the same insurer denied this particular coverage. So maybe not 3 months ago, maybe a couple of months before we actually closed on the other home right down the road, 3 homes over, same builder, same everything, same material. Within a couple of months difference, the coverage ceased to exist for they just refused to issue a policy. Home insurance is wild. So here again, I feel very comfortable hopefully overestimating. So to give you a realistic understanding of what home insurance is actually going to be. PMI, it's not going to factor into this particular loan because we are putting 20% down. So we're going to keep it moving. Now HOAs, we're going to go into the listing and see if there's a homeowners association, and there are none. So here, the beauty of Plano is that there's going to be plenty of opportunity of buying a property that is not in an HOA, so that's going to save you some money. Now you're going to see this number magically change based off of the conditions that we just applied. So we're going to hit update, and our monthly mortgage payment for a property of for a property of this size, a property of this value, is going to be about $4,300. Now here again, I overestimated in one key thing, the property taxes. So here, if I wanted to be a little bit fair, a little bit more aggressive, but here again, I like to be more conservative, I would quote you at about $4,200 per month, give or take, as opposed to $4,300. But the fact that it's going to be over $4,000, yes, I'd take that to the bank. That is an absolute truth. Let me know if you have any questions. We're going to go through and actually going to write an offer and show you how the contract is going to look. But I want to give you clarity on mortgage payments. I want to give you clarity on property taxes. If you're finding value, I do strongly have to ask for another like button. So if you're finding value, smashing that like is going to be one of the biggest things that you could do to help us grow the channel, help get this information out to as many people as possible that are thinking about purchasing in Plano. So that would be so appreciated if you could help us out with the like button in this video. All right, so what we're going to do now is we are going to go back to our DFW Homebuyer class agenda and keep it moving. Now remember, now we're going to make an offer. Now I'm going to show you what the contract looks like that you're most likely going to be facing whenever you're working with a real estate agent. Now, if you don't have a real estate agent, I would love to have a conversation with you. But regardless, if you're already working with the real estate agent and you're already preparing yourself to buy in Plano, fantastic. I want to help you as much as I can. And one of the best ways I can show you and help you in this particular case is share with you what the promulgated form that you're most likely going to be asked to sign is going to look like. So oftentimes we as real estate agents, we just we send over contracts through DocuSign and expect them to get signed without much information on the back end. So that's not us, but I just want to show you what that looks like right now. So the parties, we're going to go through this really quick so you can see the parties involved. That one's pretty simple. Here we go. The parties is essentially who the seller is and who the buyer is. So here you would put the LLC information or the trust information if you're going to buy it through an LLC or a trust. The property, well, it's very important that you highlight what property you're purchasing. So making sure that you got the lot, the block, the legal property address is super important, absolutely vital, especially if you're buying in Plano. Now, exclusions. Here's a general rule of thumb. If you saw it attached or affixed or screwed into the wall or into the ceiling, into the floor, if you saw anything attached to the property while you saw the property, expect it to convey, meaning expect it to be there when you close on the property if you saw it attached. Now, as an example, if you saw the chandelier attached and you really loved it, but you see that in the contract that it's excluded, well, they excluded it for a reason because it was attached, which again, the expectation is that it's going to come with the property, except if they call out that, hey, it's not going to be sold, it has to be put in the exclusions list. Anything that's affixed that is excluded needs to make this section right here. If it's not, then it's coming with it. Sales price. This is where you disclose what you're offering for the property and how you plan to finance yourself. So here, get as close to the actual number as possible. So here, what I want to encourage you to do is be as upfront and honest with your financing part, because you could, in theory, make up a lot of shenanigans on how you're going to finance yourself to try to strengthen your offer, but there's no need. It's going to only bring more issues and problems. So here you could say, as an example, if you're putting 5% down and financing the rest, that's going to say a lot about your financing for your sales owner, or your homeowner, the homeowner that you're trying to buy this property from. But I would much rather you be upfront, as opposed to say, hey, I'm going to put 80% cash and then only finance 20%. Well, that, while the number here at the sales price is the same, you're conveying a radically different message. So I want you to be upfront as to the best of your ability. Now, does it have to be exact? No, it doesn't have to be exact on how you finance yourself. Like, this number will have to be exact. Let's be clear. The sales price does need to be exact, but how you get there doesn't. Leases. Leases aren't going to apply as much unless there is an occupant. If there's a tenant in the property itself, then you're going to be expecting a residential lease that comes with it. Now, if there's a solar, this happens quite a bit now. So if there's a solar panel on the property, then most likely there will be a fixture lease unless it's already been paid out outright. Earnest and termination. So earnest money is, think of it like a good faith deposit. Earnest money is not a legal requirement. Earnest money is not something that has to come with an offer, but it is expected. It is customary. So you typically are used to seeing 1% in earnest whenever you submit an offer. So as an example, if you're buying this property for $600,000, it's customary to see $6,000 in earnest money, meaning that you are going to need to put $6,000 into the title's bank account within 3 days of executing this contract. Now, you're going to read through this on your own leisure and with your real estate agent, but I'm just giving you the cliff notes here. Earnest money is something that you are not, that you're honestly expected to do, but it's not a legal requirement. You need to submit that within 3 days of executing this contract. Now, if you go through and purchase the property, at the end of the day, that is going to be credited to you. So again, this is a deposit. This is an earnest money. This is a good faith deposit that gets applied at closing. If you get out of the contract in a compliant way, meaning you do not break the contract, you get this earnest money back. So those are two ways that you get your money to work for you, that you don't lose it. Now, where you do lose your earnest money is if you break the contract and there is essentially a breach of contract. So if you breach the contract, then you are risking that $6,000 or however much you put in earnest. That is a real number that we want to take into consideration. Now, that's the earnest money. Now you have the termination option, which is essentially the option fee. You have within an option period, which is everything is negotiable, you have the opportunity to do some additional inspections on the, and you're going to see this here in a couple of minutes as well. You have the opportunity to put some additional inspectors into that property to really identify what the condition of the home truly is by having a professional go through and look at the plumbing, look at the electrical, look at the foundation, look at everything in between. So during this option, you have every single right to get out of that contract for any and all reason. So typically what I'm seeing more common than not, and the way that we're writing offers right now, is we're putting about $100 to $200 in option fee and giving ourselves about 7 days. Now, could you ask for 5 days? Sure. Could you ask for 10 days? Sure. But right now, offers that are getting accepted right now, I'm used to writing them for $200 for $200 and getting 7 days out of it. Now, during the option fee, if we go through and purchase the property, we get that money credited towards closing. If we decide during that option period that the condition of the home is a little bit different than what we expected and do not want to pursue this offer any further, then we exercise the termination clause through this option fee, and we do not see that money back. That was a fee that we paid for a certain amount of days, which we got, and then we get out of that contract for that expense. Title policy. Title policy is basically the insurance that whatever you purchase, whatever this property that you purchase is in fact legally going to be yours. So as an example, if somebody comes out of the woodwork, like a cousin comes out of the woodwork and says, hey, this property should have never been sold. This was my aunt's and she said it was mine when she was on her deathbed. So the kids had no right to sell this property. Well, tough titty said the kitty. No, so at that point, the title policy would back you up, or essentially it's to indemnify you, and that's what you're paying for when it comes to a title policy, making sure that you, whatever you're purchasing, you have the essentially the legal claim to. And of course, with real estate, everything is negotiable, as mentioned earlier. But right now, it's pretty common in the market that we're in a normal market, or even a buyer's market, which is what I believe we're actually in. It's common for the seller to actually pick up that policy. Now, all of this works together. This is kind of like a little cake here that you're building up. So sometimes you can add a little bit more over here and take out a little bit over here, but always finding that perfect blend so you get that perfect taste. That's the same thing with an offer. If you're lowballing, or if you're offering fair, quote unquote fair price, then it's going to really affect what you can ask for. There's a balance that you want to meet. So really my claim to fame is that even in competitive markets, we get offers accepted. We just write very competitive offers. And it's not just offering the max. It's not offering a list. It's not offering over list. We write competitive offers that win, and it really doesn't always come down to the price. There's other things that you can put in your offer that makes it stand out. So that's why you want to work with a professional that knows real estate. All right, so survey is essentially a piece of paper. It's a document that lets you know what you own, lets you know where the boundaries are, lets you know where the property should be, lets you know if there's any easements on that property. And this is something that you would be entitled to if there happens to be one. Now, if there isn't a survey, then you or the seller would be purchasing it, because that's going to be a condition that the lender is going to require. And a survey of the property of this value or so, it's going to be about $600. All right, so let's go over here. Another big component of an offer is what's known as the seller's disclosure. Now, the seller's disclosure is required by Texas property code. So the seller, regardless of how much they know or don't know about the property, is required to give you a seller's disclosure. Now, some homeowners are super detailed and will tell you every month that they change their filter in their HVAC unit. Some sellers are super not going to fill out this disclosure that well, to where they're going to put, I don't know. But here's the thing, you are based on from the Texas property code, you are entitled to a seller's disclosure. So make sure that you get that. And if your real estate agent for whatever reason forgets, which I can't imagine of a reason that they would, you need to be asking for what the seller's disclosure looks like for sure before you're writing an offer, or getting that seller's disclosure as quickly as possible if you happen to find yourself in a competitive situation, to where you can shoot first and ask questions later in the option period. All right, so let's continue going. A residential service contract here. If you plan to ask for a credit for your homeowner's home warranty, you can do that there. And then let's go to the closing date. Oh, I skipped it, didn't I? Closing, super important. Closing right now, you can close on a property within 2 weeks. It could clear title. You could be, depending on how you're financing yourself, you can close on a property relatively quickly. But on average right now, we're closing in about 25 days. So that's really how we write our offers. Within 25 days, it gets our buyers to the closing table in a reasonable amount of time, not super stressed, not super chaotic. It's a reasonable amount of time. Now, could you ask for more? Yeah, you sure could. Could you ask for less? Of course. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for just a ballpark, 25 days is what we're writing offers for. All right, so let's look at the breakdown. I like to break the offer down, or I like to break down the process down altogether of when we're under contract into 4 main weeks. So these 4 main weeks, we do have labeled here. The first week is what we call inspections week. Inspections week is essentially the option period. Oops, option period. This is what we paid for. Remember earlier on in the contract where we put a certain amount of money in for where we put a certain amount of money for a certain amount of days to do option, where we put our inspector in. We'll get a general inspector out there that will assess the entire property. So from the roof, the foundation, the electrical, the plumbing, the whatever they find on the property, and we'll give you a full detailed report. Now, if there's something that's super specific to where a specialist is required, let's just say an HVAC technician or a roofer or a foundation expert or a plumber, like if there's something that needs a bit more, a little bit closer an eye, then during the option period, that's when you go out and get some additional inspectors into that particular property to give you their opinion of what it would take to either fix the issue or give you some assurance that whatever was called out in the inspection report is actually okay to move forward with. So that's what happens in the inspection. So here, if your contract is going to fall, if you're going to fall out of contract, it's most likely going to happen during the option period, because there, for any and all reason, you can back out of that contract, assuming that you bought that those a certain amount of days and are compliant in the contract. So again, week 1 is going to be mostly inspections. And if you find something that changes the condition of the home materially, then you could ask for it either to get repaired and or for you to get a credit for a certain thing that under reasonable expectation you weren't able to find whenever you toured the property from the beginning or wasn't disclosed to you. So again, we call that typically negotiation number 2, but it'll depend on what's found within the inspection itself. The approval week. Approval week is in week 2, where you're working very closely with the lender to submit as many documents as you possibly can, because they're going to ask for everything. They're going to ask for W-2 statements, 1099s, bank statements. They're going to ask for tax returns. They're going to ask for anything and everything to substantiate whatever you put in your application. You need to back that up with receipts, literally. You're also going to be working closely with the title company so they can issue you a title policy. So that within week 2, that's where the most of the heavy lifting is. You're providing as much documentation over to lenders so they can get it into underwriting as quickly as possible. But here in week 2, something very important happens. The lender's going to order what's called an appraisal. The appraisal is when a appraiser will go out to the property and give their opinion of value, which they're going to then send over to the lender and let them know what they think the value of the home that you're trying to buy actually is. So in this particular case, since we're trying to buy this property for $600,000, we want this appraisal to come back at $600,000 or above, because that will help us secure the loan. And let's get to week number 3. Week number 3, we're going to look at that. With week number 3, you are cleaning up conditions. So I call this conditions week because at this point, most likely you already have a response back from the underwriters letting you know what needs to be fixed, what needs some letters of explanation, what needs some additional, essentially what conditions need to be met for you to get approved on that loan. So at this point, week 3, you're working on getting those conditions cleaned up. But also, you're going to be getting that appraisal back at this point. So within that appraisal, again, if it comes over $600,000, since we're trying to buy this house for $600,000, if it's over that, awesome, great job. You're on your way to close. But if it happens to be below the $600,000, that's when one of 4 things is going to happen. So let's just say the appraiser goes out there and you're under contract for $600,000. Remember, $600,000 is very important. But the appraiser says this property is worth $550,000 soaking wet. Like, this is $550,000 property all day long. So that means that you're offering $50,000 more than the actual value of the home according to the appraiser. Well, here's one of 4 things that can happen. Either you as the buyer, make up that difference. So that $50,000 gap, you come to the closing table in cash, or not in literal cash, but adding to the closing amount. Either you make up that difference, that's option number 1, or 2, the seller reduces down to what the value of the home is according to the appraiser. So essentially, the number that you're under contract for goes down. So that's option number 2. Option number 3 is y'all meet somewhere in the middle. The seller takes a little bit less than what they were expecting to get, and you pay a little bit more out of pocket than you were expecting. That's option number 3. Option number 4 is you get if you wrote your offer correctly, if you wrote it in a way that you're protected, you get out of that contract because you're not going to be able to qualify for the loan. That's the 4th option. Now, that is again, that happens in the appraisal. Happens when the appraisal comes back. Now, here within week 3, you should also be getting, at this point, you should also be getting what's called a closing disclosure, which shows you the final numbers, or very, very close to the final numbers of what's going to be requested of you when you close. So essentially, what you need to come to the closing table with. So the amount that you're going to need to bring in cashier's check, or you're going to be wiring at closing. So here again, closing disclosure is owed to you 3 days before close, business days before close. Week number 4, you're working on scheduling the closing. So at what time you're going to actually be closing, and then making sure that your utilities are activated. So you're going to activate the utilities on the day that you're closing. And then, but even before the closing though, you're going to be doing a final walkthrough. So here you're going to schedule the closing and schedule the utilities so they're on whenever you're ready to go. And you're going to be doing a final walkthrough. Now, the final walkthrough usually happens the day before or the morning of closing. So you're going to wait towards the very last possible minute to make sure that the property is as you expected it to be. So oftentimes, everything is going to go perfect. But there are times where there's some nightmare scenarios where you show up in the final walkthrough and the place is a mess. There's holes in the wall where there was no holes in the wall. So it just means that the seller was a little bit less than careful whenever they're moving their belongings out. There are some things that materially can pause the transaction on its tracks. So you need to look at that property and see the condition of the property before you actually sign on the dotted line. So that's what the final walkthrough is for. Closing. When it comes to the closing, you're going to be wiring the funds or bring a cashier's check to the title company as you're signing. And you officially become a homeowner once both parties sign and the loan funds. So once you sign, let's just say you're the second person to sign, the homeowner went in there that morning, you go in there that afternoon, you want to close, you want to get to the closing table certainly before 3 p.m. because there's certain wire cutoffs that you want to meet. Within a few hours, the loan is going to fund, meaning that the lender is going to review the documents that were signed and making sure that all the conditions were met. Once that is done, they're going to give the signal to fund the loan. Once that happens, you officially become a homeowner and you get the keys. That is step 11. Notice that there's quite a few. But here's what's pretty cool. You have, after closing, you're not done yet, right? So you've been working towards getting that home. Now the real fun begins. Now you are a homeowner. And I want to break things down for you so it makes it much easier for you to have a home that you're proud of, have a home that you enjoy at the end of the day. So within week 1 of your new home, these are the things that we recommend that you get done. Pace yourself. The way that we broke this down has helped our clients immensely. Again, just go to dfwhomebuyerclass.com to get this checklist and then some. So there's additional resources there for you. Week 1, this is what you can expect to do, or what you should be working on doing. Within the first 30 days, this is also what you should be working on. Again, it looks pretty daunting, but if you do it this way, if you do this checklist the way that we've listed out, you're going to find so much joy in home ownership. And every year, this is what you should be doing. So we break it down even beyond the transaction. We want to help you succeed in being a homeowner. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to drop them down in the chat. A like is going to go a long way. If you're thinking about purchasing in Plano, I encourage it. I encourage you. Plano is a fantastic place to live. If you'd love our support, please feel free to reach out to us. But at bare minimum, please head over to dfwhomebuyerclass.com to get a very detailed breakdown of the home buying journey, along with all the resources that you're going to need in order to do that successfully. Anyway, hope you have a fantastic evening. Thanks so much. Talk soon.